Welcome back to Lockdown Writing with Elle McNicoll. I am Elle McNicoll. I'm the author of A Kind of Spark, which is out now, and I am the author of Show Us Who You Are, which is going to be out on the 4th of March. So, if you watch the introduction video, you'll know that today is the first session and we're going to be doing Idea Factory, because one of the questions, let me just get my glasses on right, one of the questions I get asked most by journalists, by bloggers, by people who are, interested in talking to an author and talking about writing middle grade or just writing in general, one of the questions that get asked the most is, where do you get your ideas? And I think a lot of the time this question gets asked because people are really curious about people's process, because everybody has a different process ultimately. But I think really a lot of the time people ask the question because they want you to give them the magical sort of clue to getting great ideas for stories. And unfortunately, there is no magical clue. There is no cheat. There is no shortcut. There are so many different ways of getting ideas for a book. The first one is my favourite kind, and if you have any kind of imagination, which I know a lot of you watching this will, then this is going to happen a lot in your life, and you can just sit back and wait for this to happen, because when it does, it's great. And that is when an idea just comes into your brain and it is pretty well formed and it's pretty solid, and you're like, that's an idea, and you run and write down whatever it is. So for Show Us Who You Are, which is the book coming out in March, I was, and this will link back to something I'm going to talk about in a minute, I was in the cinema, this was a couple of years ago now, I was in the cinema watching a film which was a little bit boring. It wasn't the most engaging film for me, and it had this incredible score though, as in the music that plays under the film. The music was beautiful, so I shut my eyes and I just enjoyed the music. And the idea for Show Us Who You Are, in particular one specific scene which happens at the end of the book, came into my head completely fully formed, and it was nothing to do with the film we were watching. It was just an idea that was ready and was like, hello, I'm here, I'm ready to go. Those moments are incredible, and they will happen to you. And what I'm advising is that when they do happen to you, write them down immediately. Immediately. You don't have to start writing the story. And in fact, I would advise not writing the story. Just write the idea down in your notebook as soon as possible, exactly as it came into your head. It might happen to you in the shower. It might happen to you in the middle of a lesson, in which case, keep doing your lesson, but quickly just take a moment and write it down. That is a gift, and that is the most exciting time for an idea to come. However, if that's not something that happens to you a lot, which is totally okay, then we're going to go to part 2, which is something that I advise anybody who wants to be a writer to do, and that is consuming other kinds of art. Now, I might get in a little bit of trouble because all of the other writers who are children's writers give one piece of, they all give great advice, but they give one piece of advice that is commonplace through all, and that is, a good writer must be a good reader. I agree. To be a good writer, you have to read a lot of books. You especially have to read books that are, it's going to be on shelves next to yours. So I have to read a lot of middle grade because I write middle grade. However, and I hope this doesn't get me into trouble, but consuming other kinds of media is just as important and just as helpful. And that's a key word, helpful. Watching lots of really good films, watching lots of great television, and watching lots of incredible theatre. Theatre is so important to being a good writer, because theatre is the original storytelling. Those are all really helpful too. You can learn about constructing a really good plot from watching a great film. You can learn about writing really great dialogue from reading a great play. It is not just specific to books, and I'd hope that doesn't get me in trouble for saying that, but I say that because I know that a lot of people probably haven't found their book yet. They probably haven't found that one book that really makes them fall in love with reading, but I know that you will have found a film or a TV show that really connects to you. So it's important to understand that those other kinds of media and storytelling are just as helpful as reading. However, books are of course essential if you want to get good vocabulary and you want to understand the actual physical literary process of writing a book. So I hope I won't get in too much trouble. But if it's a situation where you're like, I want to write a story, but I don't have any ideas coming into my head straight or at the moment, what you can do is look at your favorite books, and remember, reading books, reading like this is fine, But audiobooks count as well. Listening to a book is the same as reading it. You're still getting the story. So figure out what books you love, what TV shows you love, films you love, theatre, play, anything. I know that everybody watching this will have some kind of storytelling that they love and connect to, and you'll have a favourite film or a favourite book or a favourite TV show. Write them all down in your notebook, your writer's notebook, and start looking at what it is you love about them. So if it's a TV show, why do you keep watching it? What is it that draws you in? If it's a film, is it the kind of film that you want to go right back to the beginning and watch again? Is it a film that you know by heart? Can you say the entire script, verbatim from memory? If it's a book, how many times have you read it? And what is it that makes you keep coming back? And I need you to write all of that down. I need you to write down, if it's something like, I love the main character, or I love the setting, or I love the sense of humour, I love the action, whatever it is, and, ask for help if you can't quite articulate what it is. You can always ask. It's really good to ask for help as a writer. It's not a solely solitary thing. So write down everything that you love about whatever it is you love, and start looking at it and going, right, this is what engages me as a viewer, as a reader, this is what draws me in. Can I emulate this in my own work? Meaning, can I do this myself? Because when you are writing a story or a book, or any kind of, written story, it's important to put away any kind of preconceived notions you have about what's clever, or what's interesting, or what's trending, what's something that everyone else is doing, and think about the story that you would like to read, watch, see. Think about what would make you keep reading, what would draw you in, because whatever interests you as a writer, that is going to be the most important factor. Because if you're bored writing it, people are going to be bored reading it, believe me. So you have to be writing the story that you want. With A Kind of Spark, I really decided to write the book that I wanted to read, especially the book that I wanted to read as an 11-year-old. I was like, I want to read something with, a great setting, with lots of characters, an ensemble cast of characters. I want a heroine that's really brave, but, isn't obnoxious. And I want sisterhood, and I want all kinds of things. So I put that into the book deliberately, because that's the stuff I like to read about. And sure enough, luckily enough, that's the stuff that readers tell me they like. And it's really important that you do that too. You are the most important thing about your story. Whatever you find interesting, whatever you like to talk about, whatever brings you joy, is going to help you write a great story. So you've got your list of things that you like and the things that you find interesting in the content that you watch or read. Now I want you to write all the things down that you love. Maybe they're things that you haven't seen represented in a book or a film or a TV show yet. I love, gosh, what do I love? I love cupcakes. There's a shop in Edinburgh called BB's Bakery, and they make the most incredible cupcakes. Whenever I'm back in Edinburgh, I have to go there. I love cupcakes, so I would just write down on my list cupcakes, and who knows what that'll lead to. Maybe it'll become a story about a shop that sells cupcakes, and every time you take a bite of one, you get time traveled back to a different place. I don't know, something like that. But I love cupcakes, so that's one I put down. I love relationships, not necessarily, love stories, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, girlfriend, whatever. I love, in Spark, it's a relationship between two sisters, between Kitty and Addie. And in Show Us Who You Are, it's a relationship between two friends. I love a relationship at the heart of a story, so I might put down friendship, or relationship. I love settings that are really, really atmospheric, so write that down too. Think about the things that you like in media, but think about the things that you like in general, and the things that you would like to see in a book. And guess what? You're going to write the book, or the story, that you want to read. You have to be the first reader, the one that picks it up and goes, yes, this is a story that I really, really like to read, and I really want to keep reading. We'll get to this later in another class, but don't feel that you have to be enormously excited by and in love with your story the entire time, because that is not going to happen. There are going to be moments where you think, oh my goodness, nobody wants to read this, let alone me. That's totally normal, so don't worry about that. The most important thing right now is to get the ideas down. Write them down. If they come into your head organically, when you're in the shower or when you're doing something else, perfect. Those are often really great. Write them down. But you can also write down things that you want to see in a book. Like I said, it's like a recipe. You put down all the things you're like, I want to see a little bit of pirates. I want to see a little bit of, maybe you like Christmas. A lot of people like to read books at Christmas. Maybe it's about, I don't know, an evil version of Santa that lives in the South Pole and he's trying to destroy Christmas. I don't know, like write down the things that you want to see in a book, and the more you sort of look at this recipe you've made, the more an idea will start to form. So that's really important. But also I'll say that, you know, we have sessions coming up on character, plot, genre setting, etc. All that is going to add to an idea that you've written down. You might have written down something, and this happens to me a lot, where you look at it, you know, when you come back to it and you go, that, I don't know what that is. I don't know, that doesn't make any sense, that idea. Don't worry about it. Leave it, because you're going to be working on character, plot, setting, like I said, and that can fill in the blanks. That can bolster up the idea and make it much more, you know, pitchable. Okay, so I'm going to take a little pause, and hopefully you can pause the video right at this point, and I'm going to let you write down as much as you can think of right now. So when I say pause, pause the video and write down as many things that you like and as many things that you like to see in your art, your books, your TV, your films. Write them down as quickly as you can. Don't think about it, don't intellectualize it, just write it down now. Go. Okay, so hopefully you're unpaused and you're back, or maybe you never did pause, you're just like, I'll do it later. Fine. This isn't, you know, there's no exam. Everything's just for fun. So you've got your recipe, you've got all these ideas. And like I said, we're going to be working on other things that are going to help bolster up this idea, especially things like theme, character, etc. But one thing to really remember when you're writing anything, is that it's important to think about, why do we start this story here? Why now? So A Kind of Spark starts with Addie being shouted at by Miss Murphy, her teacher, who is sort of the villain of the story. And, you know, I don't even know why I picked this point to start at, but it just felt like that was it. That's when the story begins. And that's when everything suddenly becomes important. Because if we're telling the stories of our own lives, for example, we probably don't want to start with when we're born, we don't want to start with learning to walk, crawl, maybe you do, but most stories don't tend to start there, they start later on. So it's important to think about, where do I want to start a story? You don't need to start it at a traditional beginning. It doesn't need to be, once upon a time I was born and blah 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 blah, once upon a time this character was blah blah. It doesn't need to be that. Starting anywhere, and actually starting a little bit later than you think you should, is also a really good trick. For homework, I want you to write what is called an elevator pitch. Elevator is an American word. In Britain it would be a lift pitch, but that doesn't sound as good. So an elevator pitch is exactly that. It's something you do. You've got to imagine that you're getting into a lift. You get in, you press your button, and the doors close, and someone's in there already, and maybe you know them, and they go, oh, hi, how are you? How are you? I'm fine, good, how are you? Blah, 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 blah. All this neurotypical small talk that they love. And then, sorry, that was a little joke. And so they say, how are you? What are you working on? And you go, I only have 30 seconds until this lift gets to the floor and the doors open before to tell this person what I'm working on. And you have to give them the idea in the lift. It has to be a really quick pitch. And a pitch means that you're pitching the idea. So you're suggesting the idea to someone, or you're selling them the idea even. So if I was stuck in a lift with someone and they said, oh, what have you been working on? I would say, oh, I've written a middle grade novel about this neurodivergent girl who discovers that her town used to execute people for being witches, and she wants to build a memorial for them. That is not the book in total. There's so much more to the book than that, but that is the elevator pitch. That is the quick pitch of what the story is. So there's a little bit of a who and a when and a what and a why. So that's what I would like you to do. I would like you to go and look at all of the things that you wrote down that you loved, the kind of, you know, the ideas that you want to work with, and try and put them together into something that can be an elevator pitch. You don't need to worry about things like how's the book going to end, or what am I going to do in the middle, or who's the main character really, or who are all the other characters, or what's the title going to be. None of that matters. Just get an elevator pitch down. If you've got more than one, great, but for today we're just going to do one. And believe me, that little pitch is going to make making the story bigger a lot easier. So that is the assignment for today. And I'll be back on Monday to start on character, but if you want to send me your elevator pitches, the link to my website is in the description box below. You can send it via a contact form with the consent and the cooperation of an adult, mum, dad, teacher, guardian. You can send me your elevator pitches. I'd love to read them. I'll tweet my favourites if you like, only if you want me to. You can also find me on Twitter at Books and Chokers. So there's that. That's the assignment. It's not homework. You don't have to do it. Now we want to talk about a book that has great ideas, and I picked Wonderscape by Jennifer Bell. Jennifer Bell has great ideas. She's one of those authors. I mean, it's very difficult to get published as a middle grade author if you don't have great ideas. Middle grade is one of those areas where ideas are really at the forefront, but Jennifer Bell just has the most incredible ideas. Wonderscape is a great book if you're a gamer or you're someone that loves fast-paced action and adventure. It's about these kids that get thrown into the future and they're in an in-reality game and they have to get their way out. There's lots of riddles and challenges, and and friendship is a really great theme running throughout. It's a really great book, and I think if Jennifer were to do the exercise that we talked about at the beginning of this, she would write down things like, I mean, I'm being presumptuous, maybe I'm wrong, she would write down things like, I like books about friendship, I like books about video games, I like books with adventure. That's the kind of recipe that it takes to make Wonderscape, which is a phenomenal read and I really recommend it. So, finally, a bookshop I really want to shout out is Round Table Books in Brixton. Brixton is a really great part of London. It's really colourful and bright and I love it, because London has a tendency to be a bit grey and dull sometimes, but every time I go to Brixton I go, because it's really lively and lovely. So there's a bookshop in Brixton called Round Table Books, and they'll be linked in the description box below as well, and they only sell books that are inclusive, so books that include everybody, and they really are incredible. They always have great window displays, obviously closed right now because it's lockdown, but really great website to check out and a great resource to remember for later on. So thank you guys, and I hope that you can get along with some of the exercises in today's session, and I'd love to hear from you, and I cannot wait for Monday. We're going to start on character. We're going to be talking about objectives. We're going to be talking about wants and wills, and I just cannot wait to see you there. So thank you. Bye.